Hi there, my name's Vince from mymatevince.com, and in this video today it's going to be another fix-it video. Another video where I've bought something faulty off eBay and I will do my best to fix it. Now, I'm not an expert in these repairs, but I do like taking things apart and doing my best to fix them. So what you see in this video may not always be the correct, it will often not be the correct way of doing things. It's just the way I go about fault finding. Right, okay, so they took a bit of time with the packaging here, and in here we have a Sega Game Gear. That's in pretty good condition actually. A few scratches up the screen there, but that looks good. Right, okay, so I've already tried to repair one of these before. I changed all the capacitors in it, and it didn't work because there was actually a fault with the screen. It looked like the capacitors were gone as well, but it turns out there was a fault with the screen. Now, let me show you the listing of this one and show you what I paid for it. Right, so here we have it here. Sega Game Gear console. I paid £14.99 plus £2.95 postage, so that's just a little under £18. And it just says, loads of pictures. It says this listing is for a Sega Game Gear console, and it's got a number there. The console will probably need its capacitors replaced, that's what the last one said, along with potential other repairs. The sound works but is low. There are lots of pixels on the screen that are stuck on or not working. This console is for spares or repair. It does not fully function. Right, okay, and if these pictures are real, which I presume they are, then this time I can actually see a working game. But it must just, well, we'll turn it on and see, like the person said, it's got stuck pixels. So in this instance, maybe it will be faulty capacitors, because on the last one I did, I changed all the capacitors, but it didn't make a blind bit of difference. So I'm hoping with this one, although it was a little bit more expensive, I'm hoping that this might be able to repair. Now, I said about the low sound, I have read before that that is caused by bad capacitors. So obviously these systems now, these came out in 1991 in Europe, so they're you know, like around about 27 years old. So it's not unbelievable that the capacitors would be failing. So with the sound, because I've already changed it on my other one, this is the one I did before, which I can't get working, I might just take the sound board out of this and put it into here. So I might do a bit of sort of mixing and matching so I don't have to change every single capacitor. Okay, so let me get some batteries and see exactly what's happening with this. Oh, looks really clean. Really good condition. Unless the last one I had was just really bad condition. I never owned one of these, so I've never actually played on one. When I was younger, I really wanted the Atari Lynx rather than this, but I never got it because it was just too expensive back then. Excellent. Right, okay, because I see what they mean by the pixels. If you have a look, can you see in the top corner here? And there's like pixelated all over. Let's see if there's any volume on this. Right, the volume's up full. Right, there's nothing happening. Let me turn it off. So I don't know if this game works, so I've got these games second hand. Let's try this one. There we go, this is doing something this time. Right, so that's the volume up full. Okay, so the volume's unusable. Let's see if the D-pad and stuff works. Yeah. Okay, so this is obviously like Tetris, but it looks like it's just vertical, that you can't do any sideways movements. Right, so I can definitely see all the pixels there now. You can see in the middle here we have a crop of them, and all around up the edge. So maybe this will be to do with capacitors. It'd be nice if it is just the capacitors. I'm hoping it's not a screen fault, but yeah, because it all looks in good condition, I'm hoping that it will be just that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take this apart. I'm going to swap the sound card over to begin with, just to make sure we've got volume. and then I'll have a look at the capacitors. Maybe I'll swap them all over, or maybe I'll see one or two that have leaked, but still, we'll take it apart and see what's what. This one here is a Model 2 board, so this has got 12 capacitors in. I believe the Model 1 has 11, so if we count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you can see there's only one chip down the corner here, and it all looks remarkably clean. I mean, if you did watch my other video, you can see the difference between them. There's definitely been no battery leakage on here, and there's been no water damage either, so this looks like, so far, like a really nice, clean Game Gear. And the date on the inside of this one looks like it's from 93, the 5th month, so May 1993. Right, so this is the soundboard here, and these are the capacitors that go faulty. This one here, this one, this one, and this one. So on the last one I changed all these over. So I mean, these all look good, but you know, I can't see any obvious leakage or anything coming out of them. But obviously there is an issue with it. So I'm going to swap the sound card over and see if that solves the problem. Off the sound, obviously it's not going to solve the problem of the pixelation. So this is the faulty one here, where I've already done all the work to. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do a straight swap just to see if it fixes that first problem of the lack of sounds. There we go. Yeah, that's plenty loud now. Right, okay. Well, that appears to be okay. So now we don't have to worry about that sound card anymore. So there's no point in me changing out the capacitors if I've already got a donor Game Gear that I changed out the capacitors before with, so it saved me a little bit of time. Also, the sound card capacitors were the most annoying to change over because those ones are slightly harder to do. But now I'm going to keep this one as a spare, and then you see I can change out the capacitors if I ever need a sound card. So now I need to worry about this pixelated screen, find out if we can fix that. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to have a look at each of the capacitors just to see if they're, you know, if I can see any obvious signs of kind of like leakage or anything from them. Now, for example, if you see this one here, you see that there's like sort of brown gunk around it. Well, in fact, I think that is just glue because each of these have been glued down. So when you go to take them off, what you need to do is you need to get some little pliers and just wiggle them back and forth to break the seal against the board, and then you can just unsolder the pads and then change them out. Now, if you're wondering what these sort of what it means, basically, if you look here, it says 4.7, 35 volts. So that would be 4.7 microfarads, 35 volts. That's the negative, and that's the positive pad down the bottom. This one here, for example, would be 68 microfarads at 6.3 volts. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to have a look around it now, see if I can see anything. Get my multimeter out just to see if I can, you know, test. I don't know how to test capacitors. I haven't got the equipment to test it when it's in the board, but I'm just going to see if any of them are different than any of the others. After a quick visual inspection, the only thing that I can see wrong is this one here. If I was to zoom in on that, so if you just have a look closely just here, just there you can see a bit of corrosion. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking this one out, and then when it's out I might try to put some voltage through it and see if it stores, you know, stores any voltage. This one now. This is supposed to be 4.7, and it is actually coming up there. Look, 4. Yeah, there you go. So 4, nearly 4.1. So that looks to be okay. The capacitors out of this one because this board's no good to me now anyway. So I might as well just take them straight out of here. Right, okay, so that is all the soldering done. It was a lot quicker this time because I'd already done the hard work on that one, cutting them all down to size and stuff. So it was just a case of taking off all the old capacitors, cleaning it all with the IPA cleaner, and then putting a little bit of solder on each pad, and then just swapping them over one by one, and then just cleaning them up at the end. Sorry, after I swapped them over, I added a little bit of solder to each pad, and then I just cleaned it up at the ends. And as you can see, it all looks quite good. So I've sort of bent them all into place rather than sticking up, and also I've cut the legs on most of them as well, just to make them a bit neater, because remember the legs are very long and I don't want them dangling everywhere. So when you're doing this, you have to leave certain bits clear, like these dots and this big dot here, so you can't have like this capacitor draped over here. It has to be, you know, pushed up out of the way. So yeah, that's it. Time to put it back together and actually see if it is going to work or not. On this one, I am actually hopeful. Right, before I screw it together, I'm just going to turn it on just to see what it does. No, I can still see pixels. Oh, come on. Look at them all. They're still there, aren't they? Look. I mean, when you turn it up, you can't see it as much. Yeah, it's still there. It still looks like a space scene. It looks like a starry night. Look. Right, okay. Oh, I don't believe it. Do you know what? I have zero luck with Game Gears. Right, so could it be the LCD again? Could it be the connections down the bottom to the LCD? I'm wondering how much of these fixes are actually fixed by the capacitors, unless I've been unlucky. I mean, this one 100% is, you know, this is definitely a genuine one. But I've changed all the capacitors over. I mean, obviously there's a chance that the capacitors I've put in are faulty because I didn't test them before putting them in. But what's the odds of that? Especially to change them all and have exactly the same issue as before. I mean, yes, we've got the sound working now, so obviously the sound card must have had a faulty capacitor or something else in it. But the screen is no better than it was. Right, okay, so I've been looking on Google and apparently there is no fix for the pixelated LCDs apart from replacing the LCD, which isn't really a fix either because the price of the replacement ones are hugely expensive. So, you know, you can't just buy one for £20 and pop it in there. Not that I can see anyway. So, just purely out of curiosity, because I don't want to break this one, I'm just going to undo the screws that hold this to, you know, the front part here. And I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure just on the ribbon cable and also the 3 chip stuff, just to see if it makes any difference. So I'm just going to do that now. Right, okay, so I've just taken this off now, so I'm just going to turn it on. I've got a bit of paper here just to stop everything shorting out. Right, so it's still got the pixels there. I just want to see if they change when I press anything. No, so they haven't changed at all. I know it's not showing up in the camera, but you can see, actually you can see there's a nice little cluster here. In fact, this is a great angle for seeing the pixels. So basically, as you see it now, is the worst that it is. Obviously, don't look at the reflections. The weird thing is, if it was one of these chips, for example, I would have thought that maybe it would have affected a third of a screen, you know, because have all 3 chips go. I mean, this one's definitely worse here. Personally, I don't believe it's the ribbon cable. I don't believe it's any connection down here. And I'm not 100% sure. I know everybody's saying it is the screen, and obviously, you know, they're going to know more than me. But it's just weird that all 3 chips seem to have pixelation up here. I'm wondering whether it's some other component, one of the small SMD, the surface mount components just down on the board itself, because, you know, changing the caps out is one thing. Let's turn this off now. Changing the caps out is one thing, and obviously it does fix things. In this instance here, it has actually fixed the sound, hasn't it, because there was low sound earlier. But there's so many more components down here, and I'm wondering whether it's one of the transistors or something that's causing these pixels, because they don't look like dead pixels. They're just they're kind of they're on, aren't they? If you look at them, they're bright. So it's like a hot pixel or a bright pixel. So I'm wondering whether it's one of the other components, because we do have little transistors and stuff here as well, and we've got a huge range of capacitors and resistors. I wonder whether any of them would be responsible for it. Or is it just a case of the LCD failing? I don't really know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together because to me it is working and it's good enough. You know, it's good enough for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with it for about 10-15 minutes and see what it's like, just to see if any of them get better after a bit of use. I'm sure it won't, but that's what I'm going to do. Right, okay, so I've been playing it for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Obviously the pixels haven't got any better. You can see when I turn the contrast down where they all are. So, good thing is though, it is still more than playable. Good volume on it. Let's just turn that down. So, you know, if you want to play your old Game Gear games, it's still playable. The pixels are distracting, but when you try not to focus on them, then it doesn't annoy you quite so much. So for me now, this will be definitely a playable Game Gear. And as far as a Game Gear is concerned, I've never actually used one before, and I quite like it. I think it's quite a nice design. It feels quite nice in the hand. It's not overly bulky, it's not small, but the colours and stuff look quite nice on it. So what I've got now is I've got 2 more Game Gears to do, and I'm hoping maybe between both of them I might be able to get one working one. So that's going to be on another video. But on this one here, was it a success? Not really. I mean, yes, I've changed the sound card over and now the sound works on it, but apart from that, I don't think the screen's any better than it was before. I didn't play it extensively before, as you've seen, I just turned it on. So I'll have to watch the video back to see what it looked like before. But from memory, I think there was as many pixels on it before as there is now. So I don't think, I don't think the colours or anything look any better. So in this instance, it looks like the capacitors were not faulty, just the ones in the sound card, wherever that is located. I've lost my bearings now, but so it was just the ones in the sound card. Yeah, and it looks like dead pixels are not something which is easy to fix unless you want to completely mod the screen. Never mind though, it was still an interesting one, and I've learned for future fixes on Game Gears. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please check out my other videos on the Game Gear and other fix-it videos and how-to videos as well. Take care, bye now.